When it comes to building in Minecraft, there is always one thing that stops the build from ever reaching its full potential. It doesn't matter how creative or complex a build looks, without this one thing it can never be at its best. So today I'm going to finally show you 3 simple steps that Minecrafters like Bdoubleo and GoodTimesWithScar use to level up almost every single build they make and stop your Minecraft base from looking like this. Now, to really show you how important this is, I need to show you this Minecraft house. Now, I'm going to ask you, what is the first thing you notice about this? I'll give you a few seconds to leave a comment if you can tell me exactly what it is I'm talking about. Done? Excellent. Now, this house isn't very complex, but there's clearly something lacking with it. Now, if I told you this build has absolutely no texturing, that might be it. Or what about the fact it has a piece of the roof missing? Not that either. It may seem like these are the problem, but the real thing that's stopping the build from ever reaching its potential has to be the terraining, or rather lack of it. You see, it really doesn't matter how good a build is, if the area around it doesn't fit, it will end up holding it back. And unfortunately, the majority of Minecraft players won't even considering to change the landscape to level up their build. Back when I was a little Dave, I was one of these people. Making a good build was really tough. I was always unsure about why it looked wrong and what I needed to do to make it look better. But once I found these secrets, my building skills went through the roof. Well, not literally, because, usually terrain doesn't have a roof. I started using different terraforming techniques, different natural mini builds, texturing, all of which turned me from a building beginner to a certified expert. And if you don't believe me, just take redstone and Mumbo Jumbo as an example. Now, Mumbo Jumbo has been on the Hermitcraft server for almost 10 years now. And while he's best known for all of his crazy redstone contraptions, his builds have come a very long way. If we just compare his seasons 5 to 8 Hermitcraft bases, we can actually track the progression through the years. If we take a look closer, however, the quantity and more important quality of terraining of each of these builds is one of the main reasons they improve so much throughout the years. So you may be wanting to get straight into terraining and natural building to get those builds up to an even higher level, but just wait! Before you go all guns blazing, you need to have a think about what blocks you're going to use. In the recent years, Minecraft has added so many new natural blocks to build with, from mud to moss, but this is actually where the majority of people are once again held back by an invisible barrier. The thing that might be causing these seemingly positive connections between these blocks and terraining is actually one of the main things that holds it back. You see, it's very tempting to stick to these blocks that would make sense to be part of your build, like the grass and mosses, but why would you stop there? It may seem really strange, but there is nothing stopping you for using any block in Minecraft. No matter how out there it seems or how unnatural it might look, if it fits within the terrain, then it's going to be a good choice of block. Some simple things that work could be using green concrete as a grass variant or texture, or using coral as a more unique flower type. Both these can work very effectively, along with so much more that can elevate the variety and potential of the terrain to a whole new level than what can be achieved with just the basic natural blocks. So you need to break past that invisible barrier and start to use blocks based on how they look, not what they're called. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There is no point just throwing blocks down on the ground randomly and hoping it's going to look good. Trust me, it won't. You'll just get something that looks like this. You see, while training is easy when you know how, there is still a fairly complicated step that we first need to address. And once I say it, I expect to hear a collective sigh of realization from all of you watching. It's terraforming.
That's so obvious.
Training and terraforming might sound like one and the same, but there's actually a slight difference. You see, terraining is all about the look of the landscape, whereas terraforming is all about how the landscape looks. I see what I've done there. Okay, for the purpose of the video, when we're referring to terraining, we're talking about the look and texturing of the landscape. Whereas when we're talking about terraforming, that's referring to one of the most important and overlooked parts of landscaping there is. And that's the shape. Minecraft already has a decently shaped landscape, especially after the Cave and Cliffs update, but the problem with that is it's not always what you want, or even quite where you want it. When you're terraforming, you need to look at the land you're starting with and ask yourself one question. Is this close to what I want it to be? If it is, then you're in luck, but you still have work to do. You see, the terrain in Minecraft tends to be quite, well, blocky. What this means you end up with is a lot of flat edges and unnatural looking corners. So by shaping it, you are going to directly combat this and smoothen out the terrain to neaten it up. In nature, there aren't any flat edges. Even on a cliff, the sides aren't nearly as flat as they seem. And when you're terraforming, this is so important to keep in mind to stop your terrain looking blocky. How to actually put this into practice is to think of curves. If you change any edges to curves and making gradual inclines when you want to change direction, you'll end up with a much more natural looking terrain. Circles are the right idea too when you're working with larger landscapes, so that the overall look is much better off. And the most important thing for terraforming, and for any build for that matter, is don't be afraid of changing what you've done. Nobody knows exactly what block to put where until they see it. So if you're stuck, just put some blocks down, see how it looks, and then edit it to your heart's content. Oh, and feel free to block off any of those weird holes or ponds Minecraft has. They really make the terrain look a bit odd. But what if your terrain you're working with is nothing like the one you envision? If you need to build your own custom land, the ideas that we went through in the shaping are going to be crucial to making it look as natural as possible. Let's say you're building a hill for a house to sit on top of. It can be very hard to see what shape is going to be needed for it to look natural. So a great tip while building larger or even smaller structures is going to be to build the outline first. Choose a base block that you'll start to use the build with and outline the main defining points of the shape. In this case, I'm outlining the uppermost layer of the hill with a curve all the way around to make sure there's enough room for the house. Well, this is essentially a circle. Don't make it too uniform or it'll end up looking like a cone. Just carry this down, keep taking a step back to see how it looks, if it's too steep or too shallow, and go back and change any bits that don't work. Once you're happy with the shape of this terrain, you've successfully completed step 2 of 3 and can move on to the final part of terraining. The cherry on the top of the cake and probably the most important part of landscaping, and this is the detail. No build can be the best unless it has detail. And while most of the time this comes in the form of texturing, it also refers to the extra little things the build has to really give it character and infuse life and a story into it. And this applies to a landscape too. Nothing is more boring and bland than an entire grass field. And so by finding small details to add to it and by texturing it to give the area life, your entire landscape can transform into something much, much better. If you remember back to step 1, you need to let go of what the blocks are called. Texture your grass with concrete or your cliff face with coral, and it will really make the possibilities near endless. Whenever you texture in Minecraft, it is so important to keep in mind the story. It doesn't have to be complex, but you just got to ask yourself some questions. Why is there texturing here? What does it show? If you're building a pathway, why would some of it be different textures? Is it because it's worn? If so, which areas have been travelled the most? This way of thinking can be the key thing that unlocks the next level of texturing in Minecraft, and allows you to develop the story of your landscape on a large scale by focusing on the small scale. And if you make sure there are some natural or even man-made structures around too, the whole landscape will have finally gone from something without any character to an entire story of wonder brimming with life and atmosphere. But some of the actual blocks you need to use are quite difficult to get. There are loads of different farms you can use to get a lot of these blocks. However, one thing most people don't know is that you can actually get a lot of blocks from stonemason villagers. So click this video here where you can find out how to get yourself a villager set up to collect all the blocks you're going to need for all your terraforming projects.